Welcome to Central News. I'm Hilary Entwistle. In today's news, $500 million is being spent on the Waikato District Health Board's building program, and it is on time and on budget. The project started in 2005 and is due to finish in 2014, with last year seeing the completion of Stage 1 and the opening of the Mead Clinical Centre. Building project manager Ian Wollstonecroft says the Mead Clinical Centre was the big one, but they still have stages 2 and 3 to go.
Yes, we have two major projects still going. The Mead Clinical Centre, which started in February 2010. It's due to be finished in all its stages by April 2014. So it's been a long construction time. Of course, it's a big building, 39,000 square metres of space. The other building, the Older Persons and Rehabilitation Services building, it commenced in November 2011 and it will finish for occupation by the end of June this year.
The Bay of Plenty Times newspaper will be delivered at 6 a.m. and in a new compact format from March the 4th. This will be the biggest change in the 140-year-old paper's history, and has said the paper will now have a greater emphasis on local news and views. The decision was made after consultation with staff, including delivery personnel, affected by the change and as part of APN's overhaul of its daily newspapers. Chief Editor Scott Inglis says readers will benefit from the new compact size and morning delivery, as it is smaller and easier to read.
There are at least 20 major changes that will be taking place with the Bay of Plenty Times weekday edition. Firstly, obviously there's the delivery time and the format change, but we've also taken this opportunity to totally overhaul the content and the look of the paper, and we have reviewed and will be overhauling local general news, local business, local sport. There will be more racing, and there will be a fresher design of the paper and a different page flow.
The debate for fluoride in the Waikato's water supply is heating up, and there will be a tribunal held by the Hamilton City Council in May. In New Zealand, local territorial authorities can make decisions about whether water supplies in their districts are fluoridated or not. Medical Officer of Health at Waikato Hospital, Felicity Dumble, says there is overwhelming expert medical support and evidence in favour of adding fluoride to drinking water.
Fluoridation in conjunction with regular toothbrushing and a good diet are the best ways to reduce tooth decay. Fluoridation is safe and effective, and anyone with their natural teeth will benefit.
Now for our region's weather. Hamilton Friday will be fine and hot apparently, with a few light winds for some relief. An expected high of 26 and an overnight low of 15. Tauranga, your Friday will be very similar to today, mainly fine with morning cloud and evening cloud. Your expected high is 24 and an overnight low of 18. Just ahead, the emergency plan for the Waikato. Welcome to Central News on TV Central. If an emergency were to hit your town, will you be ready? Well, the Waikato DHB have a strong plan in place to put your minds at ease. Amy spoke with Trevor Eccleston to find out about some recent changes to the plan.
It's a health emergency plan, and it's been based on the 4 Rs that Civil Defence and the Emergency Services use. It's also on the same sort of format that the Midland DHBs are using, so it's going to be useful because they'll all look the same.
Okay, so you mentioned the 4 Rs. How is the plan built around these 4 words?
Okay, 4 Rs. Once again, it is Civil Defence and Emergency Services, so it's interagency that we all use this terminology. The 4 Rs, reduction. How can we reduce the risks out there? So for an example, for a health, the flu vaccine would reduce the risk of overwhelming the health services in the wintertime things. That's a really good example of how we can reduce risk. Then there's the readiness phase, and even today what we're doing here is getting ready by promoting what we do for emergency management. Being ready and having a plan, the plan that we're discussing, as well as other plans. Personal preparedness, getting ready, understanding the plan before you ever have to use it. I do say that the best thing for the plan is to keep the door open in an emergency once we're operating, and refer to it later on. You've got to know what's in it. Then we get to use CIMS, the Coordinated Incident Management System, when we respond, the third R. And that coordinated incident management system is used by all of the agencies, and we understand the language in it and the positions in it, and then we all understand how we can work together in that. It's a very important phase, the coordinated incident management system. And then, of course, the recovery side of it, which can be very long term, and it can be quite different to how we work today because of whatever the event has taken place. And you know, with Christchurch, it's going to be in recovery for years to come. The thing about recovery, though, is to look back and debrief people and then find out the learnings and then revisit your plan and update your plan from that. So there's the 4 Rs.
So what type of emergencies are your team equipped for?
Okay, we try to keep the health emergency plan so it can be used for all types of hazards out there. And we can use that system in a large scale, or we can use the coordinated incident management system as a very basic 3-team, 4-team approach, 4-person team approach. There is a mass casualty plan that we use for our emergency departments, and should something major occur, they've got a very well practiced plan about dealing with 100 people coming into an already busy emergency department. Also, pandemic influenza plan, should an outbreak occur, you know, the planning and the public health side of it switches into action and then works their way through that unplanned event.
And how do you train staff to cope with the pressure of an emergency?
Obviously, our teams work under a pretty pressured environment most of the time, emergency departments, ICUs and things like that, but we do try and use our coordinated incident management system as much as possible. We do exercise and train when we have the opportunity. It's a very busy environment, obviously. But going back to exercise shakeout last year with the earthquake exercise, a lot of teams took the opportunity to practice the event and then also what would be the after effects, and we do take those opportunities when they arise.
Can you tell us about some of the events that your staff have been through and coped well in to make you feel that they are ready for an emergency?
I came into this role in 2005 and I could just think of event after event that's been going on. Probably the big two, though, was the pandemic, and then health was the lead agency there, and working through that whole scenario of illness and giving the public the right messages and how to cope with that. So that was a really interesting, well-worked response to that event. And then I would talk about the Christchurch response as well. We ended up sending, as health throughout New Zealand, about 4,000 shifts down to Christchurch to help support them in that 6-week period when they were in response mode. And that was a coordinated response through all of the DHBs and the Ministry of Health supporting Christchurch.
So if an emergency does occur in the Waikato, how do you hope to communicate and provide information for members of the public?
I think it's really important that we stick to the same message as civil defence. People should turn on their radio, and it should have that opportunity of a battery-powered radio, also your car radio as well, to get the messages that are out there, the correct messages and the instructions that go with those. Some of the first messages you will hear will be health messages. And I'll use Christchurch as the example again. It was boil your water, wash your hands, and that stopped the outbreaks that could have occurred in a pretty dire situation with what was going on in Christchurch. So that's the simple message, really. Of course, we do have our DHB website, which will be updated regularly, and our communications teams are very good at following the social media.
Are there any tips that you'd like to pass on to members of the public?
The most important one is have your own plan, have your own family plan, and we encourage our staff to have that as well, and then that will flow on health medication issues, things like that. Have your own plan for your own health.
Coming up next, we chat with a local vet to see what the effects are of summer on your furry friend. Welcome back. We humans may be affected by the heat of the summer, but spare a thought for our furry friends who are just as much affected. I found out more from our local vet, Susan Murray. Susan, is there an increase in skin conditions in the warmer months, not just for humans but for pets as well?
Definitely, yeah. We definitely see a lot more animals during the summer months at this time of the year presenting for skin conditions, generally relating to there being a lot more fleas around, so the animals are in contact with a lot more fleas, there being a lot more plants and pollens and grasses around that produce allergens, which the animals then react to.
Ear infections are apparently more common in summer. What can we be doing to kind of prevent these?
So ear infections will produce waxes or discharges from the ear, which you'll see they can range from brown to yellow to very smelly. The inside of the ear, ears get very red and inflamed, and the dogs get, dogs especially, we do see cats as well, get very sore and they'll shake their heads. So if you've got animals, especially with ears that fold down over the head, looking and checking all the time, and any signs that you see or any irritability in the ears, definitely get them checked out to prevent them getting any worse.
So shaking their head's actually a sign that they've got?
Yeah, it can be. Yeah. And they don't necessarily shake their heads though if they have got sore ears. So checking them as well is a good idea.
Oh, it can be very smelly. How can we avoid eczema on our pet skin?
So eczema generally means itchy skin. Keeping things under control like fleas, which cause itchiness. So having a good flea regime through the summer months is especially important. Grooming your pets so that you remove excess hair, trimming around eyes and feet so they don't get daggy and encrusted, and then washing with pet-specific shampoos. Not overly washing, but every 1 or 2 weeks to remove, again, excess hairs and dirt and things can help prevent animals becoming itchy. Some animals will have skin conditions a bit like humans, which may not be able to be kept under control by kind of those methods, and they may need other types of treatments. But those are a few things along the way that you can do to try and help your pet out.
Cats and dogs get eczema?
Yes, dogs are generally worse. We see more dogs than we see cats. We see a lot of cats with flea allergies.
So why do fleas become worse over summer?
Fleas have a life cycle. They have the adult flea, and then they have eggs and larvae and pupae. It's the flea which survives on the dog or cat. The rest of the life cycle is in the environment. And for the eggs to be able to hatch, you need the environment to be warm and moist, over about 20 degrees. So during your winter months, the only area that has a temperature like that is your house, and you generally, with your flea products or your flea bombs, you keep that area under control. During the summer months, when the temperature outside increases, your eggs can hatch anywhere. So there's flea eggs hatching everywhere, and an animal walks past and they jump on, so there's a much higher flea burden everywhere. And at the moment we're just seeing influxes of animals coming in riddled with fleas. So
there's potentially fleas in the garden?
Yes, and under trees and in areas where dogs lie a lot and things like that.
Oh, yuck. What is Wandering Jew or Wandering Willy, and why should our dogs?
So Wandering Jew is a plant that grows, it's probably about this high off the ground. It's got a green, roundish oval leaf, creeps under plants and in the garden, generally under bigger trees or down by the river or something, and dogs will kind of run through it as they're playing or going for a walk, and as it contacts the animal, it causes an itch, and then they flare up and get extremely itchy. So if people have got them knowingly in their garden, then it's a good idea to remove them. Or if you know it's in an area you're going to walk your dog, keep them away from it.
Sounds like poison ivy a little bit.
It stands about that high off the ground, and it's very thick all over the place. So.
Are animals like humans and can be affected by allergens in the ear in summer?
Yep, to a certain degree. They can be, the pollens and the grasses and things can cause the same kind of conditions as humans, so runny eyes, runny nose. Those are kind of mild signs, and they can also cause the skin problems as well, and we generally see the skin problems coming in because the runny nose and the runny eyes and things are mild enough that owners don't, it's not bad enough really to take them to the vet. But yes, they can have the same symptoms as humans.
And it's definitely a warmer summer, so how do we avoid heat exhaustion in our pets?
So I would say the main thing to remember with heat exhaustion is don't leave your pets in your car at all, not even for 5 minutes, because you forget they're there and it doesn't take very long for your animal to become overheated. If you're taking them out for walks in the heat of the day, I wouldn't be running behind bikes or cars at this time of the year. It's just too hot. If they do go out for a walk and we have a particularly big run around, make sure they come back in, they've got water and shelter. And then any time of the day that you leave your pet at home, make sure that you've got shelter and water.
Stay tuned for tips on keeping your team safe. If you have just joined us, welcome to Central News. It's natural for parents to worry about the safety of their teens on the open road. So Amy spoke with David Perks to find out some tips to help ease those nerves.
Yeah, the thing to remember is death on the roads is the single biggest killer of teenagers in New Zealand. If we look at the OECD countries, the 16 to 17-year-old age group, New Zealand is the worst, has the worst statistics out of all of those countries. 2011 we had 82 deaths, 2012 we've had 65. So we've seen a decreasing trend over those 2 years, but are still significantly high in comparison to other countries.
Okay, so in 2011, the minimum age of getting a learner's licence was changed from 15 up to the age of 16. So do you think this decrease is to do with that, or what are your thoughts?
Possibly it is, though statistically speaking we've only got the 1 year sample set, so it's really too early to tell. We're hoping it has made a difference, it's intended to make a difference, but as I say, we actually need more information before we can guarantee it has.
So when is a young driver most at risk and why?
When they change from having their learner's licence to a restricted licence, it's a large step because they go from having peer support, someone sitting beside them, telling them, giving them advice, helping them with decision making, to actually sitting in the car by themselves and having to make those decisions themselves. So what happens is, as I say, because a teenager's brain or someone new to driving, it has to get used to the different environments they're going to be driving in: rain, sleet, snow, different road conditions such as gravel, tar seal, thin, thick. They need someone who's been in those situations to be able to provide advice. But when they become a restricted driver, they don't have that advice, so they have to rely on their own cognizance and own abilities. And sometimes where they strike a situation they haven't been in before, it can be very daunting to them.
And so how big do you think this problem is, and what can we do to try and prevent these accidents?
I think you might have seen the ads where you've got the parent that shoots out of the car, and that advice about just because your kid's got their restricted licence doesn't mean you should actually step away and not have any involvement. It's very much about still being involved, still offering advice. With a teenager it can be difficult as they're not that willing to accept it, but I suppose it's the way you offer it. But it's still being there to give them the support and give them the knowledge that you've built over time.
So tell me, the parachute concert, the big concert that attracts a lot of teens, was over last weekend. How was the driving behaviour over the weekend?
I mean, the difficulty is it's on a long weekend anyway in New Zealand, so it's hard to attribute poor driving to a particular set of people that are going to a concert, for example. So the driving, as I understand it, was no worse than usual, and in saying that, it was also no better as well. So yeah, you can't really say everyone's improved their driving or everyone's got worse. It's an evolving feast.
Okay, so another concert that's coming up this weekend, which attracts a lot of teens, is Ragamuffin, the concert. So do you have any tips for young drivers to get there safely?
Yeah, so the first thing is we actually have a website, safeteendriver.co.nz, and on that it has tips about going to concerts, routes, that sort of thing. But in my mind it's very much about you have to know your car. So you actually check it out, make sure the tyres, everything is okay. Then you actually want to look at the route you're taking. You want to factor in stops for rest breaks, if you need to get petrol, if you need to get food. And so it's planning what you're going to do before you do it, rather than just rocking on up and driving and hoping everything's going to be all right. So it's all around the planning. And in that, as I say, it's also involving your friends, your family, and getting advice from them.
And so what about the parents? Obviously there's a lot of parents that are very nervous about their teens getting out on the road, sometimes for the first time, or not having as much experience. So if parents are perhaps a bit worried, is there more that they should be doing or checking before their teens head off?
I think it is actually very much helping them plan what they're going to be doing. As you say, for a lot of first-time drivers, it's the first time they've actually driven the car by themselves, first time they've been on a really busy road where there's going to be a lot of traffic, and first time going to a concert like that when they're driving and have full responsibility. So it's very much around the planning, looking at the vehicle, making sure everything's okay, and as I say, looking at the Safe Team website that has good advice in terms of for parents as well as for the person driving.
Yeah, and do you think it can be a bit of a worry or distraction with teens having passengers in the car as well?
It can be. It can be very much that your passengers can egg you on to do things that you would not normally do. And so it's very much about taking personal responsibility. And so you are the person in charge, and therefore you've got those people's lives in your hands, so you have to take responsibility for doing the right thing and not being distracted, not using your cell phone and other things. So, you know, you do have to take responsibility for your actions.
So how can parents help to choose an appropriate car for their teen?
Okay, so there's a website called Right Car website, rightcar.co.nz, and so that has what is called star ratings. So it goes from a very poorly rated vehicle to a highly rated vehicle, and it lets you put in the make and model of that vehicle, and it'll come up with a star rating. And so that will tell you, is it safe, isn't it safe? The other thing is, it's not about the car you get, it's about the safety rating of the car. So we really focus on that safety rating rather than does it have mag wheels, does it have a large engine, small engine. I mean, the other thing is maybe parents should consider letting them drive the family car. The family car is usually the best car, so give them a good car to start with rather than putting them in a poor car with poor safety features.
That is the news for today. We really want you to be involved, so like us on Facebook and let us know your views. If you have news including your own video and photos, go to our website and hit upload. Thanks for joining us. I will be back tomorrow night with more guests from in and around the regions. I'm Hilary Entwistle. Have a lovely evening.
This has been an Alpha Media production, a division of Television Media Group.
Supporting local content so you can see more of New Zealand on air.